Coming up next, we're going to show you the future of DWG, of drawing, and joining me up here is Hans de Bakker from Bricsys, and maybe if you can just say a few words about yourself.
Hello. Well, Heidi, unlike you, I have not been 3 decades at the same company, but for the last 3 decades I've been at a company that was founded by Eric. And the last 10 or 15 years I've been heading the team that works on the development of the BricsCAD core, the core application and the core technology on top of which all the other nice stuff is being built. So we'll show you what we have been doing for V19.
Great. Yeah, we have Hans and team to thank for much of the cool functionality you've seen and what we'll be showing you coming up. So I'm not going to go, we just have a couple PowerPoint slides here, but we're going to just quickly show you a few things as BricsCAD evolves, and with V19 coming up, being released here soon, we have, excuse me, some tools that have been enhanced that you may be familiar with from other CAD applications. So we'll be giving you a quick demo of just a few of those. We won't go into a lot of detail because we assume many of you are maybe familiar. I have more. Okay, keeping me hydrated. We are going to just show you a quick look at some of the improvements that we've made for tools, like I said, that you may be familiar with from other CAD applications. So we'll be looking at things like PDF import, block editor. I'm not going to cover a lot right here because we want to show you in the product. And then we will also be looking at some of the oops, did I go the wrong way? Oh, that's the demo. Maybe I don't know how to advance. Oh, it's slow, okay. And then we will be talking about some of the new functionality. So again, looking at the innovative tools that you may not have even thought of or dreamed of or seen in any other CAD applications. All right, so here I've got BricsCAD V19 pulled up, and first thing I'm going to do is attach or link to a spreadsheet. So I've got Excel right here, I've got a spreadsheet in there. Now I didn't have to have Excel open, but I just wanted to show you that. Using the tools in BricsCAD now, I can insert a table, and you'll see a new option where I've got this data link. So I can choose that, create a new data link. I'm just going to call this deck materials. And I can link to a specific range in that spreadsheet, or in this case, I'm just going to link to the entire file. So I'll select that Excel spreadsheet, link to that, and you can see here that it will display a preview image and paste it in, or not paste it, just linking it in. So I have all that data from that spreadsheet is now right here in my drawing. If I go back to that spreadsheet and make changes, maybe I'll change these quantities to something else, change the price, whatever changes I make there, then when I save that spreadsheet and go back into my drawing, I will get a notice that there's been changes. So I can choose, it's not going to do it automatically, it's going to let me know so that I realize that there will be some changes. Update those. And then I'll just zoom in and you can see, there we go. Zoom in, you can see that it made the changes. So data linking. Dimensions, we've improved dimensions, added a new tool, a dimension tool, and with that you can use a single dimension tool to create various types of dimensions. So I'll choose the dimension tool here. Choose the dimension tool, and now as I pass the cursor over the geometry, it detects the geometry. In this case, it's placing linear dimensions, but without even changing the tool, I'm still in the same command. It detects that I've got a circle. Oops, now I lost the command. It detects that I've got a circle there, so I don't have to switch and use different tools depending on the type of geometry. I can use continuous, baseline, I could just keep going all within the same command. Block editor, that's something that we've heard about and Hans and team has responded to. So now in this drawing, this title block is actually a block. So I can use that title block. I've got a block editor tool now right here. And if I edit the block, whatever block you've got, block definition, then you'll see it just switches to a different mode. It's not completely obvious. I have a toolbar here, but the rest of my environment looks just like what I'm used to in BricsCAD, so I have access to all the tools I might possibly want to use, whether I'm creating a 2D or a 3D block. And then I can either save or discard my changes, and I'm back to my previous state where that block is just an insertion in my current drawing. Okay, so then those are some of the familiar tools. Now let's move on to some of the more innovative tools. That's more fun. All right, here, this drawing is a floor plan, and in this example, I've got this arc. You know, maybe it was a kitchen counter, and I designed it, thought maybe this is a nice shape for the end of the counter. But if I want to change that, maybe I actually want it to be tangent so that it's really a half arc there. To do that previously in other CAD applications, I would have to I'd maybe explode it and then just draw a new arc that's the right radius. But with BricsCAD with V19, notice that I just select that midpoint, and as I drag out, it can see, because I have my tangent object snap on, it sees that it's tangent when I get close to that point, and I can simply select there. So I don't have to get rid of that geometry or find some other crazy ways of editing it. The same thing with perpendicular object snaps. Here it looks like I went a little crazy on the wall, but I've got my perpendicular object snap already set up. Using existing geometry, notice as I move close here, it's realizing where the perpendicular is, and I can just click on that somewhere close, and it automatically makes it perpendicular. So just little things like that really help make it more productive, make you more productive as you're using it. Another tool, again, something I never would have dreamed of having, but now that I have it, I just can't imagine not having it, is the nearest distance. And it really does display between two objects, the nearest distance. So if I select this object, this wall here, and here I've got the sofa, it finds the nearest distance between those, and it displays it there. Now that's great for viewing, so as just a utility tool, that's great, but I can click on that and I can change the value. So I can get an exact distance. It moves based on the object that I select, the first one that I select. So for example, if I come in here to the sink, and I'll select this object right here, I'll select the sink, displays the nearest distance. If I change that value, it's going to keep the line where it is, it's going to move the sink. Okay, now you can select sub-objects as well. So if I select the side of the counter over here, I'm pressing the control key this time so that it finds that specific sub-entity, and then I'll select the sink. Again, displays the distance, and I can enter a value, that sink shifts over. So this would take you multiple steps doing this without this nearest distance tool. All right, and I think I'm going to show you just a couple more, and then Hans is going to follow up with some additional examples, maybe some extreme cases or other things that he has worked on and discovered as they've been developing it. The adaptive grid, this is another subtle tool, and once you start using it, you'll just be like, oh, it works. But the way that this works is, how many times do you start a drawing? Maybe you create a new drawing from scratch, and you just draw a circle or you draw a rectangle. All right, so I'm just going to draw a rectangle here. And typically, when you do that, that first point that you picked is somewhere in space. It could be, out however many decimal places. And you pick the other point. If you're not entering values, then it's at some other random point. It might be close to what you want, but it's not exact. It's got all these decimal places following it. Notice as I'm drawing right here that it's actually giving me specific values. It's rounding to 0, 0 as my decimal places. Now, if I zoom in, it's going to give me more increments. So it's adaptive to your display, how far you're zoomed in or out. This saves a lot of typing. Nearest distance was great for if I know the value and I want to type it in, but there's many times that I may just want something kind of close to it, but I don't want it to be some crazy decimal value, right? So this is a great tool for that, and I think you'll find in multiple places where this is useful. For example, if I select this block here, this sofa, now if I use the manipulator, it actually displays, when I click on an axis here, it actually displays this ruler telling me what the increment is. So just moving this, I'm not eyeballing it anymore if I want to move it a little. It's actually going to some grid value depending how far I zoom in or zoom out. And you'll see it in multiple places. There's a new nudge tool in BricsCAD. So I select an object, and then using my control and arrow keys, I can nudge that object up or down. So I'm pressing my arrow keys up, down, left, and right. And it's not just going at some random value. It depends how far zoomed in or zoomed out I'm going. So it's really contextual to how you're working. Couple more that I want to show you here, and then I'll hand it over to Hans. The structure. This is a panel that was very new to me coming to BricsCAD, and it's been enhanced in V19. So with this drawing here, I've got a floor plan, and it's got some geometry in it, which I would assume are blocks. These are receptacles and light fixtures, switch symbols. If you want to analyze a drawing, I found the structure panel is incredibly helpful for that. So I'm going to go ahead and open it up here. And in this drawing, I'm just sorting by default. I'll just use the default structure sorting. I can see my various entities, and I can tell right away that this is probably not a really good drawing because I've got all these entities, 700 entities on layer 0. That doesn't look really clean to me. And I can see that I've got other layers here, but I don't have a lot of geometry on them. So the structure panel is just great anyway with that. But it's also great now with enhancements in V19 where you can show and hide individual geometry or groups of geometry. Show, hide, isolate, and zoom in. I think we've had that for a little while. But you can go right down to the object level with that. Now what I want to do is just look at some of these objects here that are on layer 0. And like the circles. If I look at all the circles there, you can see that these are all individual circles for these receptacles and lights. Probably somebody either maybe doesn't know anything about blocks, they don't even know what a block is, or somewhere along the line maybe the drawing was, the blocks were exploded. I don't know how it happened, but I know this is not a very clean drawing. So, excuse me, what I'm going to do now, if you've done this in the past, I imagine just about anybody that's used CAD in the past has run across this. Imagine the process for cleaning this up. You can either just leave them as all these individual objects, or you can block it and then reinsert it, rotating it all these different directions. So you'd have to reinsert multiple times. With this, I think it's my favorite new tool. There's a lot of cool new tools, but I think my favorite one in core BricsCAD is this Blockify tool. Anything that ends with ify must be a really cool tool. We've all seen Bimify by now, right? So Blockify, I can select my objects. I'll just zoom in here, select these objects, Blockify, and I'm going to have it search the entire drawing, and now I'm going to specify the insertion point. So I want this receptacle to insert between those 2 points that I pick. Just like that, it has gone through the entire drawing, and not only did it turn this one into a block, but it has turned all of these instances into blocks. So very quick to clean up that drawing. Love that tool. And as you'll see, it also works in 3D. So yeah, I'll go ahead and hand it over to Hans, and he'll give you a few more examples before we move on to 3D.
Well, there's a tremendous new tool for those of you who like to tweak user interfaces and who hate to lose their modifications with every new update. This new tool allows you to do that selectively. So here I am in my 3D modeling workspace, and let's see, I did quite a few modifications, and this button is important. Manage your customizations. And maybe for those in the back, I should just make the display a little bit bigger. But here, everything that is marked with a checkbox is in fact a modification I made. So yes, I made quite a few. And those that you want to keep, you leave them ticked. Those that you want to get rid of, you untick them. Now, a fast way to revert to the defaults is you uncheck them all, and then you get back to your BricsCAD as it was installed. If you want to retain your customizations, you check them all. And for instance, what did I change to this attachments panel? Well, I changed some of the positions and I switched it on, but how can I see what I changed? Well, I just uncheck it. And then you see the values that it had initially as BricsCAD comes out of the box. So I tick it, I see my modifications, I uncheck it, I see how it was. So we made it that simple. Maybe not interesting for everyone, but for those who tweak user interfaces, this is a godsend. So another quite important improvement is what we did for revision clouds. So we added an option so you can now draw rectangular revision clouds, or you can draw polygonal revision clouds. Okay, nice. Now, what is quite important is how you edit this. You see, I can edit this quite easily. I'll show you now how it used to be till now. This is you just couldn't do it. You had to redraw it because you got the weirdest shapes if you tried that. So this has become really easy now. You just either pick a site or you pick an endpoint, and we recognize the geometry of your revision cloud, and based on that you get special grips. Shortly we will show you that PDF can be imported, but did you know that we also worked quite a bit on the performance for underlays? So what you should try to see here is, while I zoom in, the image will be blurred for half a second. Yeah, you see it remains blurred, and then it gets sharp. Now it's blurred, now it's sharp. That's in the background that this image is calculated, but you can continue working. So when there's a very heavy PDF underlay like this one, it will take a while, but I can continue working. I can already start my drawing command, and you see it has been updating in the back while I was waiting for that. Well, I wouldn't have to wait. I can draw with precision. So that's also an important performance improvement. Now let's tell a few things about the manipulator and how it was improved. This is a bunch of geometry, 22 entities, and I will use the manipulator and I will move it a bit. Now, you see this beautiful indication of where I am moving, that's the ruler. And here I have nicely rounded values, but I can combine that with snapping. So if I snap, you see a not rounded value. You see the actually snapped value. So you can combine snapping with just rounded values on your ruler. Now, another improvement is that I've already started moving now, but I can key in the R key for repeat. So now I make repeat copy. And let's say this is my first copy. And as I drag, you see how I get the repeat? So now let's do that again. I select that geometry. I start moving. I key in repeat. And let's add a row here, and then maybe 3 more like that. Now there's another way also to make multiple copies. So if I now press the C key for copy, then I can make multiple copies, but not at fixed distances, not at fixed intervals, but just at any interval that I like. So that's nice. I could make a layout just in seconds. But was it very clever to work like that? Because what do I have now? I have an incredible bunch of separate geometry lines. So this is sloppy. So will I start over? No. I will use the Blockify command. So go here, Blockify, reply yes, yes for the defaults, and guess what? I now have created a clean drawing with 64 blocks. Maybe I can hand over to Heidi again, who can continue with other new stuff.
Okay, great. So up here I have a model pulled up that I modeled completely in BricsCAD using my existing knowledge. It's completely solids. There's no BIM, no intelligence added yet, just solid geometry. And you can see here I've got a field in there that's displaying the file size. Now I feel like I did a pretty good job modeling this. I'm very accurate and I don't like sloppy modeling or drawing. But if I look at the structure browser, again, I'm going to repeat a few of the tools that I talked about previously, but now in 3D. Emphasizing that point that I made in the earlier part of the presentation, where you really can take the tools and the knowledge that you have, even if you work completely on 2D, take those same tools and knowledge and experience and apply it to 3D and just keep going as you add more and more functionality to the software, moving up to BIM or mechanical. So here, again, this is just a solid model. I think I did a pretty good job, but looking at that structure panel, I can see here, if I look at the different types of entities, I've got a whole lot of solids, just plain solids, and then I've got a few block references. If you're not sure what they are, you can click on the whole category, you can click on specific ones, you can even zoom in and display or isolate just those ones. What I want to do, like, this is great for cleanup. If I look at these lines, this is a 3D model, so I'm not quite sure why I have line geometry in here. But again, on an individual basis or by category, I can show, hide, and isolate. I can zoom into those lines. I'm going to go ahead and isolate them. And very quickly, I can just see what they are, and I'll erase them. Now, if I go back to these solids that I have, and these block references, again, I'm going to use that wonderful Blockify tool, and instead of selecting specific geometry or insertion points, what I want to do is, let me unhide everything. That's why I'm not seeing anything there. Show, thank you. You can tell I've only been using this tool for about a week, which goes to show how easy everything is, because I've only been using V19 for less than a month, I think. All right. So here I've got my model, and I'm just going to use that wonderful Blockify tool, again, seeing how it works great in 3D as well. Instead of entering any other information, I'm just going to take the defaults, which say, look at the entire model and find anything that's grouped that are similar instances. And this model, this is actually a duplex. So when I modeled it, I just did the right side. I modeled this whole part, and then I mirrored it and moved it into position. So I would expect that I've got at least 2 of every object, but I wasn't too concerned when I modeled it, even though I like to be very careful and efficient with my modeling. I wasn't too concerned about making a block out of something that's only going to be inserted twice. I figured, it's not worth the time. With Blockify, it's worth the time, because now I turned all of these into blocks, and I have to admit that these were actually all exploded. These were little twist spindles here, and taking up a lot of space in that drawing, because they were just individual instances, which can happen very easily in a drawing. You might array it, and then for whatever reason, you explode it. Maybe you want to put objects on the right layer, and you don't want to deal with editing the block reference or something. So a lot of reasons you might do that. But without me even thinking, I just used Blockify, and within less than a second, it took this drawing, it figured out what all the things are that are duplicated somewhere in the drawing, and it turned them into blocks. You can see here, now I had 900 individual objects, previously solids. Now I have 790 blocks. Let's see what that means. I'm going to go ahead and save this drawing. Let me just save it to a different name so I don't override my original one. And we'll go back to the Layout tab, and if we see the size there. So it was one command that I used. Really, I just used Blockify, hit all the defaults, and it brought my drawing size from 11 megs down to 2 megs. Okay, so really impressive. Great tool. All right, so the next thing I want to show you is Slice, another fun tool. This is one of those commands that you may be familiar with that has a whole lot of options. I think the programmers maybe got paid by the option, right? Or not. Now you don't need all those options, or rarely will you need all those options. With the slice, it's still the same command, slice command. And I'm going to go ahead and choose these objects. You might recognize this from the Twisted Tower if you saw the BIM presentations yesterday. So I've got the object selected. Now you'll see in my options that I have this new option. I can still do it the way I always have, all these other different options, but I have this option now for multi-slice. So I use multi-slice. I'm going to take the default, which is the XY plane, but I could select any face to slice it. And now I want to specify the distance of the slice. This was for the tower building, so the distance between each of those floors was 4 meters. So I can, before I enter, I can actually see up here, as I drag the cursor, I can see it's going to measure either from the top, which it did there, or from the bottom. So I can tab, gives me that measurement from the bottom. I'll enter 4 there. Now, notice there's a repeat option. So if I want, in this case, it's a building with all these consistent 4 meter levels, I'm just going to use the repeat option. And now, as I drag it up, it's automatically that fast slicing that entire model. So how long would that take you to do that manually or traditionally? Okay, so slice, very cool tool. And I think with that, as you start working with it, because it's just so easy to use, you can come across all kinds of instances that you never would have really thought about using slice for. I actually did this model. This is just a shelving unit that I designed. I didn't put a lot of thought into the size of it. I just started sketching. I started with the box, and then I used slice, and sliced up, and then took little pieces out of the slice. A lot of different ways that you could use traditional modeling tools to create this. But that's not really what I want to talk to you about. The real point here is that this was a conceptual design. It could be anything. It could be a part, a house, whatever it is. It's just some basic conceptual design that I created in just a couple minutes, not thinking too hard about size, just really thinking about form. So I've got the general design that I want, but now what I'm going to do is use another favorite tool, which is Parametrize. So I'll go ahead and select the objects, or let's see, I'm going to type, I haven't learned yet where the tool is. So I'll just use the Parametrize tool and select the objects that I want to parameterize. And I should have pulled it up before, but if we looked at the browser, the mechanical browser, you would see there that there was nothing in here before I did the Parametrize. It was just dumb solids, just traditional solids that I've created for years and years and years, right? But it automatically analyzed all of that, found things that are similar, and it created all these parameters for me. If I right-click on those, I can animate. I could select several of them and animate them, or in this case, I just right-clicked on one and chose animate. So I can see if the names aren't that meaningful to me, I can see what exactly it's controlling. Now, I can come up here and edit them to give them more meaningful names. So, for example, I'm going to call this one depth, and this one is the height. And I could animate all of them if I was unsure what they were. And this one I'll call width. Oops. Okay, so very easy. And if you want to remove some of these, maybe some of the ones that it added because it took its best guess, if they're not right, you can remove those and add other ones that you do want. Or if you continue to add geometry to this, add more geometry, you want to make the shelves more complicated, you can add that and then add your own parameters. But in this case, I just did it very quickly. I don't really know anything except the parameterize command, and I just took all the defaults and renamed a couple things. So I'm going to go ahead and save this, and I'll just save it to a different file so I don't override my original one. Now I'm going to pull up another version excuse me, of the model. So this is the same model that we were looking at. It's just zoomed in and this, with a section plane, so we can look here at the living room space. And what I want to do, I am in model space. So what I want to do is insert. This is what I designed those shelves for. Again, not thinking too hard about size or anything, just the shape I want. So I'm going to go ahead and use the BM insert command and select that shelf that I just parameterized. So, wow, what about that? I told you I didn't think too hard about size. Darn it. Look at that. It's like a Barbie shelf. That's okay, though, because it's all parameterized. I'm going to go ahead and select it. And looking over here, let's see if I can get it. All right, what am I doing? Why am I not selecting it? Oh, because I have do I have a section plane in the middle? Normally I can just select it. All right, I'm going to window it maybe. And choose it on the properties. I'm not sure why it's not selecting. What am I doing wrong?
Is it already placed?
Tab? I think it's placed. Did I? Oh, there. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe the tab key did it, whatever. Good suggestion. Okay. So it's in there. Now, if we look at the properties for it, we can see I've got the length. Oh, I must not have saved it. The depth, the height, and the width. So I'm going to change that. I want the height to be closer. Sorry, these are US units. So I want it to be closer to maybe 80. That's inches. But you know what? This could have been metric. This was for a Barbie house in millimeters. It doesn't matter. It really didn't matter what units it was in because I'm just entering values over here. So that made it really tall. How the length of it, or that was the depth. I'm going to give it, say, 24. And it's looking a little crazy, but it's doing exactly what I want it to do. And the width, I'll say 110. Okay, so it's adjusting that. And if I zoom out, you can see that. It's looking a little bit more appropriate for my space. And now I'm going to adjust some of these other parameters, like the distance between the shelves. Okay, so just that easy, I can start modifying this, and I can change it to be what I want to design without having to remodel anything. I'll change a few more things, maybe make the height of the individual shelves 0.5, half an inch, and then, well, we'll just get really wide here for the other side so you can see the difference. But I can go in here as much as I want and change those parameters, and I'm actually changing my design without having to redefine or remodel the geometry. Fun tools. Okay, back to Hans, I think.
Okay, now you already saw the nearest distance tool being applied in 2D, but this tool works just the same in 3D. So if I select two items and I key in a new value, you see it is being pushed out. Now I could also select sub-items. So here I select the entire solid. Here I only select one face. So what happens now if I key in a value is that I pull the face back. So you can actually do push-pull or whatever. This works in 3D. That's the message. So, and it works on sub-entities and full entities. Now, an interesting thing that is new in V19 is that we moved the connect possibility. We entirely rewrote it. We not only moved it into the Platinum license, but we rewrote it from scratch because it had become a bit too smart in V18. It was considering like when a linear solid was being connected to a linear solid, then only those linear solids wanted to talk with each other. You could no longer connect it to a wall or to some dump solid. So we made it less clever and we made it more generally applicable. In fact, it's a better tool. Now, if you select this face, so now I can T-connect it, and I could, if I just hit enter, this is what happens. It connects to the nearest face, which is quite powerful. Now, instead of that, I could also select that face and then here select another face, and then instead of the T connection, I ask for an L connection. This is one option. If I press the control key, I can have this kind of butting connection or this butting connection. Maybe I will prefer that one. Now, there are still more things that are interesting with this new Connect implementation. So if I have this face and I choose to T-connect it, then by default, this is what's going to happen. So you see, it will connect here to this cylinder solid at the top and the block solid underneath. So it connects to two different solids. It connects to the nearest things that it encounters. As an alternative, you might say, well, actually what I want is this face being connected to this face. So I should choose my option. Yeah. So now what happens is that it wraps around the cylindrical face. But there's more options. You could say, I want to connect this face to this face. So then this is what you get. So you really have a powerful connection tool. Another new thing that's being introduced is this. What is it? It looks like a cloud. Yeah, it's a point cloud. So what we do in this first introduction of point clouds is making sure it is well integrated in the DWG, making sure that you can exchange it with AutoCAD. Also making sure that, for instance, a section plane, if I activate my section plane, that it cuts away your point cloud. And then when you zoom in, here you see like a lot of speckles. And what it actually is, this is space where nothing has been measured, where there is no point. So you're looking into space. So to make the image a bit nicer, you can increase the size of your points. So you're no longer looking into space. So now you see quite a nice surface instead of this unmeasured space. And in this first embodiment, you can snap 2 points. So I can, let's see. When I draw, you see I snap to all the various points. This is in this first implementation. That's what's available. In upcoming new improvements, we will add recognition of faces and cylindrical faces and edges, stuff like that. But even in this first stage, we think this will already be quite useful as an addition. Now, I'd like to say a bit more yet about this Blockify tool, because it's really an amazing tool. What you have here is like 7,000 loose pieces of geometry. This is a bike. It consists of 1,500 lines and arcs. And I want to use Blockify on it. And what happens is that, you see, it recognizes this bike, but it recognizes this bike also here in this pile of bikes. So it is quite powerful, the thing. And 2018 has been a special year, because it's the first year that we received drawings from users that are over 1 gigabyte in size when you save them on disk. So you need tens of gigabytes in order to be able to load it. And when you succeed, in case you succeed to load it, be it on BricsCAD or any other CAD, it will be terribly slow to work with. And you will not get a lot of pleasure out of that. And at Bricsys, we really think that pleasure and performing a good job go together very well. In fact, they stimulate each other. When you perform a good job, then you get pleasure, and the pleasure helps you to perform a good job. In fact, our company is the living example of that. So, how can we increase the pleasure for the users of these gigabyte monsters? Well, you could say we will improve performance of BricsCAD. And if we do a good job and work for months, then maybe we get a 10%, 20% improvement. But what's the point of waiting instead of half an hour, only 25 minutes till the operation completes? That doesn't help you a lot. So we needed something different. And what we saw was that in these monster drawings, often they came from step or anything, but there was a lot of repetition and the drawings were poorly structured. So the best thing we could do to help these users get their pleasure back was to create a structure and make it easy to create structured, well-structured drawings. And what does that mean? Share data and structure or drawing, it means Blockify. So that's why we started the Blockify development. So one last example here. This is just a tiny part of such huge files that we get. It's a walkway from a refinery installation. So, and you see these stairs, they consist of like 1,000 faces each. And they are heavy solids. Because this is not a big model, but yet it takes 33 megabytes in size. So let's see what Blockify does with it. Again, I'm just taking the default options here, which makes it go looking for similar solids and group them. This is how long it took. And now I have my block reference here, and you can see how these equal things are being recognized now. See the similar blocks. This is really amazing technology. It's only the start, what you see here. We'll come back with that. Thanks for your attention. I think this was the overview of the V19 core. I forgot, sorry. Thanks, Louis. So I will save this file, which I just did, and now I regenerate. So this is the new file size. You saw it go down tenfold. That's an order of magnitude, and performance goes also along the same lines, an order of magnitude better. Thank you for your attention.
I love that point clouds are coming in and all these great tools. And if you saw the presentations yesterday with BIM, I think you're seeing the tie here and what I was talking about earlier this morning, how you take your 2D knowledge, you apply it to 3D, you take your 3D knowledge, and these same tools, even these new innovative tools in V19, completely apply as you move your way up to BIM and manufacturing. So awesome technology coming there out of BricsCAD, Bricsys. So I think, do we have the video to play? One more slide.